All right, let's call this meeting to order. South Kingstown School Building Committee, Tuesday, January 3rd, 6 p.m. We'll open with the roll call. John Gould.
Here.
Dave Palazetti.
Aye.
Brian Sylvia.
Here.
Kate Mastinanti, I'm here. Luke Murray.
Here.
Bob Littlefield.
Here.
Michael Pedraza. And Jim Annie.
Here.
Chip McGarr and Terry Lynch will not be here today because our high school boys are in the semifinals for lacrosse against LaSalle. Go SK. All right. I do not believe I received any public correspondence between Thursday and today. So we can move right into new business item number 3, discussion action review of design development estimate and recommended cost containment options. Do we want to pair 3 and 4 together, or are these two distinctly different?
I think it depends on the action that would need to be
Okay,
taken.
so let's stick with
either of them.
this as is business item number 3 then.
All right, first I want to start off thanking everybody for your flexibility. We wanted to make sure we spent enough time giving true due diligence to what we're asking this committee to present. This is not a small ask. We want to make sure that both we do our due diligence, making sure all of our topics are properly researched, and you guys have sufficient time. So we appreciate you guys coming in for a special meeting to get this done. This is a critical milestone for us. All right, so we're going to go through just an overview of where we landed with our design development estimate and how we are planning to maintain our project budget. And then we're going to look at kind of where we are in our schedule, what we have coming up, go through the scope of work, the floor plans, and the renderings. And then at the end, we'll look at some cost containment strategies that we are pursuing and exploring as we move into construction documents. So just a reminder, our construction budget that we have is $116,266,963. Not quite so round numbers. We had also received an approval of an additional $2.5 million in PAYGO at the end of schematic design. That was to preserve a few key elements within the project, particularly the seating count in the auditorium, the music spaces, and the CTE program. So those were vital to the operation of the school district. Those were retained in this design development set, as you will see. And the additional $2.5 million in PAYGO is functioning as an additional contingency to make sure that those opportunities are funded. So our initial DD estimate came in at just over $121 million. So there's a little asterisk next to that. What that does not include is our owner's contingency. We were asked to provide a little bit of clarity as far as the contingencies for this project, so I'll try and walk through those as clearly as I can. The owner's contingency is a contingency that is used to fund unforeseen conditions during construction, as well as any overages in the soft costs. So that is the owner's money to spend during construction. At this point, we never recommend touching this while we're going through the estimating process or the GMP process. That is solely monies that are intended to be used during construction for change orders. So that is typical of 5% of our project budget. So right now we are holding about $6.8 million in owner's contingency. That is not included in that 121. That is part of our overall project budget outside of Gilbane's costs. What it does include is just under $7 million in design and pricing contingencies. That is another contingency, but it is treated very differently than an owner's contingency. This contingency, and I called it an allowance, you might see me call it an allowance as well. It is a protection for the estimate for things that have not yet been designed or finalized. So changes in our design before we go out to bid, not changes in the intent of the design, but just the detailing, as well as any misses on the estimating team or any assumptions based on incomplete information in the design development set. It also includes escalation. So it's 2.5% escalation to carry us through to our completion of bidding and our guaranteed maximum price contracts. So that contingency lives within the design development estimate. It is not intended to be spent like a contingency. It is intended to keep that bottom line steady when we go to bid and we get our bid numbers. So it's a protection for our numbers. It's not necessarily assigned to anything in particular, but it ensures that when we go out to bid, we're not getting a number that's higher than this 121 million that they're putting down on paper.
So just to clarify, in theory, the 121 is minus the 6.9, in theory. It's
Yes.
there as a placeholder in case of just what you just
It's a buffer.
described. It's a
Correct.
buffer, but it's not assigned to anything, as you just stated. I just want to say it again.
That is correct.
That it's there as a contingency and as a buffer to protect the budget.
Yes, so if we look at the cost of work, if you will, right, if the documents were bid out today and everything was perfect and the current market pricing held, we didn't need to spend $1 of that $7 million, then we would be 121 minus $7 million.
So if I can make a suggestion, when we go to council, right, and discuss this, I would start saying that our base budget, that number you just said is 114 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty important because our budget's 116, but what you're saying is, so we're aligned, but we're not as separated as we'd like from the contingency, right? So we're going to show so I would break that down, right? What's the estimate? What's the contingency? So it's a little bit more step by step so people can follow it a little bit better.
Yeah, and it is an important part of, I don't want to subtract this and say there's no chance that these numbers aren't going to be included in our final bids, because they're there for a reason. We're at 4.5%, which is typical for the end of design development to hold this contingency, design and escalation contingency.
So I think, and what I think you agree,
Yes.
what Luke's saying is, yes, the number is 121, but break it down and show what the design estimate is the 114, I think you pulled up, but there's also 6.9, so it is actually 121.
Yes.
So that it's mapped out clearly.
Yes, I will absolutely do that. So from that 121, we did go through some extensive digging into our cost estimates to see where there were efficiencies to be found. So we're at about $1.2 million in design adjustments. These are modifications to the structural system, for example, reducing the moment connections. Not something that anybody is going to be able to touch, feel, or experience. The building is still structurally sound. It's just a more efficient way of doing it. So these types of adjustments that we've found, we've been able to reduce from the cost estimate. Again, this is not a change in scope, program, design, anything that is an experience, how the building is experienced or its longevity. So that takes us to what we're calling a variance of...
Okay, I have to ask.
Yes.
What did you do to the connection?
The moment connections? Kathy?
There were too many of them in the original estimate.
Okay, it was just, you made it,
It was a mistakenly inflated number of connections to include.
okay, so you didn't change the design of it, you just reduced the
No,
number?
no, it was a number that shouldn't have been that number.
Excellent, thank you.
It was the easiest thing we found to take care of.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
But it was big money.
Yes, just for the record, Kathy Ellithorpe from SLAM just clarified that the moment connections were inflated during the estimate. They were incorrectly estimated, and it was refined during the reconciliation process.
they didn't change it, they just had too many of them on the framing.
All right, so in addition to that, from the $1,072,000, We have another $1,071,000 of additional suggestions that are being pursued. We will review those specifically at the end of this presentation and the things that we're looking to do to reduce cost. In addition, another cost reduction strategy is the reduction of the fire department, Union Fire Department fee. So our permit fee is $587,000 based on just the percentages that are applied to construction projects. We've been working closely with the Union Fire Department, as has the town manager and the deputy town manager, to look to significantly reduce those fees. We have not accepted those reductions yet because we do not have a final value for what they will be. I did just provide some inspection data to help clarify for them the level of involvement during construction. We've also committed to a third-party code review for them as well to assist their staff in being able to facilitate the review of this project.
So just for the record, that's not the total though, right? We carried in the estimate, would you say 30 or 50?
50,000.
Outside of this?
Yes.
50,000. So this number does not include 50,000, which we are holding in the estimate for that third-party review and other.
That's correct.
Correct? So if we were able to get the 587 potentially waived because, the powers that be say so, we'd still be holding that 50,000 to pay some money to Union Fire District and to our own internal inspection. Is that correct?
The 50,000 was pulled out of this as part of Gilbane's estimating exercise to be held for Union's permit fee, because that would be paid directly by Gilbane. We do have a separate budget in our soft costs for $75,000. That is for the third-party code review.
So that 50 would simply be transferred as part of that would be the reduced permit fee.
It would be the reduced permit fee, because Gilbane is already holding that for us. All right, so the bottom right section, we do have a couple of ads. These are also not included in the $121 million. These are things that have come up as we've gone through the process as enhancements to the project. One of the ads is for additional stormwater management. This is to aid in drainage along Columbia Street. This is for $221,000. An additional, a new ad for a 6-foot vinyl fence around the field. There are homes and properties that directly abut. There's a fence in questionable condition and questionable sides of the property line that we would take down and replace with a 6-foot privacy fence along the perimeter of the field for those direct abutters. There is also an alternate that is being pursued for a pedestrian walkway around the field for $106,000.
The vinyl fence, that's for the entire perimeter?
That's for the additional perimeter. We have in our base scope of work
Up to a certain
fencing
point.
up to a certain point around.
And then all the rest is that? And so even that number could be reduced if we only did one stretch, or if we didn't finish, I guess, my question?
Yes, it's kind of an L that we're looking at doing right now. If we did a straight run instead of the L, it would be reduced.
I do want to, because I see Phil looking at me and I'm getting the stare, but correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, we made a commitment to the planning board that we would do fencing to appease the neighbors, right? So that's part of our plan approval, so just to put that out there.
So this isn't an ad alternate?
It's not an
Yeah,
ad
I
alternate,
think
it's
we're
an
looking at
addition
it
to the
as-
project.
The good thing is it's at the very, very, very end of the project, and so
Yes.
if we need to cost manage, we can do it well in advance of that, so.
On this slide, yeah.
So I'm kind of going to reinforce what Luke was saying. So I'm going to say it out loud just so I have it straight, and I think it might be the best way to present it to the town council. So our construction budget is $116 million. We have additional pay-go, so our total available for construction is $118.7.
Yes.
Our DD estimate for work is 114, and then we build up the contingencies as safety nets, and then we show the variance. Is that what we want to do?
Another suggestion, this is for the committee to weigh in on. the pay-go approval was really a pay-go contingency, right? And we've said that. So I would approach it that way, is that is an additional contingency that may or may not be used, because I think that's important dialogue to happen as part of this process.
It
So
could pay down the debt too.
Yeah,
So we'd say construction budget 116, current construction estimate 114, and then build the other contingencies, including pay-go after that.
I mean, in an ideal world, we're not touching pay-go, right? We use all our other $7 million in contingencies first, and if we never touch pay-go, that's the last in contingency. So I think it needs to be explained that way, so everyone is on board with that, because I think that may come up as well, is that wasn't our first option, that was our last option.
Yeah, I can reorganize the numbers so that it reads more as a contingency and not, that's why I didn't lump it up into the budget for exactly that reason, but I'll reorganize the numbers so that's a little more clear.
Yeah, and then add the fencing back up to the top if that was a planning board requirement. So construction estimate plus the fence for the planning department, and then throw everything else down.
Okay, will do. All right, so the next few slides are similar to what we looked at last week. It's just a snapshot in time as to where we are with our project. We are now at the beginning of June as we're moving into the approval stages for our design development and looking to go into our early release packages from here. Going through a couple of key dates. So tonight we have we are asking for a recommendation from School Building Committee to Town Council for the approval of the design development plans and estimates. This Thursday, we have a public engagement session. The 9th, we're looking for Town Council's approval of the design development plans, and similarly on the 10th for the school committee's approval, and we're looking to submit to RIDE on the 11th.
So Kate, just, there's going to be an amendment to that, because I was just informed, right? Do you want to speak to this, or do you want me to speak to it? Just about the joint meeting. So we felt it was better to have a joint meeting on this, so everyone's in the same room to do the vote. Since we have a regular town council meeting on Monday, we're going to have a joint session of school committee. This is recently discussed with the school committee. We'll have a joint session prior to our regular meeting, or as part of our regular meeting, whereby you can present, and then we'll have a vote of both bodies. So that'll be a combined date on the 9th.
That's great. We'll be able to submit to RIDE a day sooner. All right, so as we go into our path for early construction, on the next slide, these are all of the critical path milestones that we've identified to get us to be able to start construction prior to the first day of school. And this includes our application for our foundations permit on July 1st. We are looking to, July 14th, hopefully get approval for a site enabling package from Town Council. And what that'll include is our temporary roadway, our utility relocation and fencing, and other miscellaneous site enabling pieces. That's to be able to get started as early as possible on site, so that we can get some of the more disruptive work out of way prior to the first day of school, establish a new parent drop-off, and do our power switch over prior to students returning. So that is a very critical date for us as we release these early packages. Moving into the 21st of July, we begin our negotiation periods for our GMP. That's our guaranteed maximum price. We're going to be working with our working group and town staff and legal. This is going to be the culmination of our early release package bids. That'll be our site, structural, long lead time items. They're going to compile those items into a guaranteed maximum price contract. We're going to review and negotiate those terms. That work is going to happen on the 21st, and then we are looking to bring that in front of this building committee August 7th for the recommendation to Town Council for that contract. Town Council would then look at it on the 11th, and notice to proceed would go forward for the early work on August 12th.
And I know you're going to get into RIDE dates next, but just to kind of reiterate, like we have been all along, we're hand in hand walking through this with RIDE. There was a group of us who met with RIDE this morning. And so we're in constant communication with Dr. Da Silva to make sure he understands the importance of us hitting these dates, and that RIDE is coming along with us for the ride so that there's no hiccups or blocking points that will arise.
Yes, that's correct. So if we go to the next slide, we can look at some of those milestones. So as Kate mentioned, we did meet with RIDE today to just go over the logistics and timing for our submissions and approvals, and kind of getting some pre-feedback from them on areas where they feel we may get caught up and have to address comments. We want to get all of the comments addressed before we submit so that it's a quick, smooth, easy approval process. We are asking for them to approve us, particularly for the site enabling work, on a very aggressive timeline. We've given them a month from the time we submit our design development documents, which need to be approved, to the time we want to award our early site contract for site enabling work. That's a tight time frame for RIDE. We have made them aware of our intentions, and again, as Kate said, we are now meeting with them weekly to review our progress, review what we're going to submit to them, so they can review everything ahead of time, and they're going through this process with us. Any questions on schedule? It's a lot. We're going to be asking for a lot of meetings. We're going to be having a lot of these discussions. It's a lot of work to do between now and the end of this summer. So we'll continue to be appreciative of everyone's willingness to make adjustments and hit the meetings for these tight turnarounds. With that, I will turn it over to the design team to go through first the site layout and then to walk us through the floor plans. These have not changed much since the last presentation, but we'll go through and review them again, make sure everybody's familiar, up to speed, and then we'll go through our approvals.
I am noticing right off the bat, this isn't the latest site plan, so we should, both on the website and to us, make sure that this is updated. So I'm looking at the dumpster location and a few bits that we presented to the planning board, so we want to make sure whatever we put out is consistent.
Will do. Thank you.
So the planning set that was submitted is on the website, and that is what we presented last week and received approval for. And as Kate mentioned, the plan has not significantly changed, other than some of the things that we heard and took action on, which is relocating of the dumpsters from the property line back towards where the cursor is in that area. The planning board meeting, if you had a chance to listen, was very thorough. Felt pretty good about the comments we received. We'll work with the administration to work through the final planning approval process. I want to answer any specific questions you all may have about the site. Anything you don't understand, feel free to ask now.
Just a few things I think we should review, because not everyone was at the planning board meeting and some things have changed a little bit. The vehicular flow for parent drop-off was one thing that was done late. I think we should bring to the group's attention.
Okay.
And then any of the landscape discussions and things that were discussed with the planning board about the commitments made.
Sure. So one of the things we did talk about was improving the pedestrian safety for the students during pickup and drop-off. So if you look on, an area where it says parent drop-off, that section of road between the entrance on the left side to the student parking and the entrance on the right side to student parking, during pickup and drop-off, that will be one way only. That allows for a disabled vehicle to go around them, also keeps people from dropping off students in the other direction and having them cross in front of vehicles. That was one of the features that we had modified and presented at the planning board. The other is the landscaping. We did have to enhance the extent of landscaping, some additional trees and some additional understory around the front of the school, along School Street, and along the student access drive. As Luke mentioned, this is a package that comes very late in the project, where we typically know where we are from contingencies from other previous buyouts. But we did commit to some enhanced landscaping in terms of trees and understory.
So to clarify with the parent drop-off, so that is a 2-lane road, but during 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., and then again between 2 p.m. and whatever the time is, right? Chip's not here for that. There'll be signs posted during these hours. The flow comes in and goes out.
Yeah, the flow never changes.
Yep.
What it does is it just prevents oncoming traffic during pickup and drop-off along that section of road. So there is an operational component to this as well as a signage component.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. And so it would be more a matter of just kind of training the people who then train the parents and the visitors that this is what happens during these hours.
We did have a traffic consultant present along with us last week, and they have a report that we'll be including in our submission to RIDE. That was an open item for them that we'll be able to close.
May I? So, Phil, if I have this correct on the traffic flow, so the one-way operation will go from Columbia through the parent drop-off area and then exit out onto School Street, is that correct?
So essentially what would happen would be if a parent enters from School Street, for example, they will not be able to drop off. They will have to go into that student parking
Okay.
lot.
Right.
If they want to. If they so desire to drop off their student there, they can, but then your student is crossing during pickup and drop off at appropriate
Sure.
crossings. What we don't want is a parent to just come down the same road that parents are going in the other direction, dropping off and letting out their students, and them crossing not at a crosswalk and just indiscriminately along that lane.
Got it. And a big part of this is going to be operation and how we train our drivers about
Correct.
certain
And-
times
and,
of the day. Yeah.
You know, I really think this is a very good site plan in terms of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. We have multiple egress points that make a lot of logical sense. There's nothing really illogical about this entire concept. That one component that we just talked about now is just really another additional element that we're able to provide for the safety of the students, that's all. And as Luke had mentioned in his email, we only had one abutter who presented at that meeting, and we were able to address his comments.
Okay, thank you.
And the only thing I'll say is on Thursday at the public forum, we will present the appropriate site plan.
He has it, okay. I was like, that's okay. I can't see that far. I brought my glasses just in case. I can see that far. All right. Nice to see you all again. And I'm trying to think back to when the last time you saw this. It probably hasn't changed a lot since the last time that you saw it. All the key components are still in the same place. The 3-story academic tower is still that yellow and blue on the left-hand side. The darker blue area is administration as well as nurse with a few other, and guidance suite is also in there. The lighter blue at the top is the cafeteria commons and the kitchen So those two L-shaped work in tandem. The big green space is the all fitness and athletics and the gym, which has worked out pretty well as we've been recrafting things. We had some issues with how our showers were laying out, but that seems to have worked out really well. We'll be seeing Terry on Thursday. The red spaces up in the upper right are still the CTE spaces for construction technology. They lay out in a really nice spot. The well that will be heating and cooling one of those spaces, I believe it's the smaller one, is out in the parking lot. Not that anybody's going to go to the parking lot and see it because it's under the parking lot, but it will be functioning. Phil's got his MEP team making sure that there's going to be some gauges and things so that students can interact with the fact that the well is working, not just having, hey, look, it's working. So that'll really be nice. The gray space right next to that, that's the loading dock that you guys were just talking about a minute ago, with layout space inside so that materials coming and going can be stored and moved properly, as well as some office space and custodial space that's adjacent to that. And then the largest piece in the other shade of red is the auditorium, the platform, and then the back of house spaces, which is all the music and theater back of house space. If you want to go to are there any questions on this floor before I hop up to the next floor?
I don't have a question. I just want it to be said out loud because we get asked after every meeting that there is, from the CTE area to the auditorium and staging area, there is ample room in ceiling height and
Yes.
hallway width to get big item props, construction pieces transported properly.
Yes.
Without having to go
Because
outside.
they do create scenery and stage other than scenery, other stage prop pieces. There's a real nice synergy between those groups, and we have oversized doors or height doors, as well as the corridors are tall, so that all that can take place without either having to go outside and around, which you could still do, or really dragging your way through the building. So if we go up one more floor, again, that academic tower, which is primarily classrooms, the big blue space in the middle is the teacher workroom. So that space stacks on all 3 floors. To the yellow, I probably should have talked about the darker yellow stripe that's to the right of that is a learning commons. So students would be allowed to come out into that space to work on projects. Chip has described it before as, instead of having them go out and sit on the floor in the hallway, they actually are going to have a space with some appropriate furniture. Their supervision with that teacher room, which should always have somebody in it. We have a lot of windows onto that space, so supervision of what's going on over there comes from a variety of places, and it'll be a nice bright spot for students. The purple spaces are art spaces, and the red one on the end is actually a combination art and CTE space. And then the media center is across the hallway from that, and it has the overlook into the 2-story learning commons cafeteria. And obviously the balcony. Sorry, forgot the balcony. I know I should never forget the balcony. The balcony is still there. And then the 3rd floor, it's the same footprint for the most part, with the exception of the what do we call them? Butterscotch color spaces are science spaces. The redder spaces are CTE programs. So those all live together in that wing, and they have a lot of synergies between the activities that go on in those as well. So that seems to have laid itself out really nicely. Any questions about how this is all coming together? Do we have the exterior renderings? Okay. So I will preface this by saying there'll be a little bit of tweaking that goes on to these as we step forward through the VE items that had been mentioned before. Nothing substantial. It's still going to look very much like this. We got a little bit, and actually this side stays almost really very much intact. So this is the back. This is where you were just talking about, where students are going to get dropped off. That tall space with the glass in the front of it is the end of the cafeteria, two-story cafeteria. The glassy three-story connector at the end of that overhang, that is on the first floors, that's where you're coming in from both sides, and it's really light and bright, and light can come transparency all the way through the building. And then the tower piece is the stair tower that actually, the stairs go all the way to the roof, which will be nice for maintenance people who need to get up there with equipment and tools and things. We do have some screening of mechanical equipment on the roof, and a really nice outdoor teaching space, as well as overflow for students who are allowed to go out during lunchtime. They can be in that horseshoe-shaped outdoor space with a seat wall and other ways to contain them so they don't wander off the reservation. So if we go to the next one. Doesn't want to go. So this is a close-up version. I think the other one that comes after this steps back a little ways, but that is the main entrance from School Street. Right now we're talking about having a garden, which could be used before or after school, but also when there's an event in the auditorium, if people come out at an intermission and want a place to sit at a bench, take a little walk, do whatever they do with their phones or whatever out there off to the side. It also gives some nice native buffer vegetation between traffic and the building itself, with a nice little row of trees there. There's buses shown on this side because that is where the buses are intended to come. The other side of the building, where the longer expanse of driveway is where we're going to stack all of your parents and others coming and going with students. So here's the backed up version of where we just were. So one of the things that we're looking at changing a little bit is there's a kind of a big swath of glass that is on that left-hand side, second and third floor. It's a little too much glass. So it's one of the places that we're looking at the 10% reduction in glazing that we were asked to take a look at. So that's going to get tempered, I'll say, a little bit. It's not going to all go away. It's just going to get treated a little bit differently. But the rest of it, the theater entrance is still there. The main entrance is still there. You know, we're going around the building and tightening things up here and there. I think that's the last one. I'm not sure.
So I have a question on this view. Yeah. So the front here is the stairwell that it goes all the way through
Yes.
the building to the other side.
That will still be transparent like it is on the corner.
And then inside that little L is where that Learning Commons is, like where it says
Yes.
SKHS right above that, right?
Yep,
Okay.
that darker yellow strip that we saw.
Yep.
And so we kind of like the treatment downstairs a little bit better, where it's not completely transparent through to that Learning Commons space. So this will give a little bit of, it'll actually provide some places where they can put whiteboards and things on the walls, so when they have breakout spaces out there, that they're a little more usable.
So my only other question is when it comes to that SKHS and then the theater, the actual lettering, is that something that is going to be part of, are those going to be actual letters, or is this just saying this is the theater?
No, we're intending, unless there's a reason to change them, which we can talk about, that they would be actual letters standing up there. We probably need to tweak the color, whatever the color of them becomes.
Yeah, I was just curious if
it's a
they were
little hard
actually
sometimes
blocks
in renderings, because if we make them dark, they disappear and you can't tell that they were there at all. Yep. As opposed to in real life where they do stand out.
Okay.
And that, where you were talking about the stair tower, the very glassy corner to the farthest to the left, we had talked the last time, or Mark had talked the last time about the blue on the outside of the building has moved inside. And that is one of the places where, if everybody's in agreement with making a blue statement, that would be an indoor place where it would be pretty prominent from the outside, but it's because it's inside the building, it's a little more protected, and we can get the right color and make sure that it's not gonna change over time, like some of the outdoor materials tend to do, and those deep blues. They're not as stable as we might like.
And that's a stairwell, right?
That is a stairwell. You can sort of see in there the little bit of stair coming up and going down. Yep.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Could we go back to either the floor plan on
Sure.
the second or the third floor?
Our navigator will get us there.
Sorry, Lou.
There's the second floor.
Could you give me an idea about the scale of that common learning area?
The yellow?
The yellow to the right, yes.
So that is, let's see, a typical corridor on the other side. Can you zoom out just a little bit farther?
So the corridor on the other side would be
Yep,
how wide?
That's what I want to see. So that's like 10 feet wide, and I'm 8 feet wide, 8 feet wide on the skinny side. That side, yep, where the little hand is.
Right.
This starts at 12, and I think it gets to almost 16 when it sort of flares out a little bit up towards the top.
Okay.
So one of the things that we're going to have to work on as we move forward and have a conversation with the fire marshal in particular about is they often ask us to mark the floor so that everybody, students and everybody else, understand that the furniture, because there'll be some movable furniture there, does not get dragged over and left in the aisleway that is
Right.
meant for egress. We typically do that with a flooring change, which is pretty easy for everybody to understand. Keep it on this side, not that side, because that is important, because it is an egress path to get down to that stair tower.
Got it, okay. Yep, thank you.
Sure.
How come it's tapered like that?
Because the design team liked the flare that they got on the little corner down there.
Architects. You're a bunch of
Architects.
artists.
Every now and then we have to do something. So, yeah.
The flare?
You have
Little
to-
flare
I'm
at
sorry.
the end there.
So
You
is
have
it,
to give him something.
Mark didn't do it to the building, so he
Yeah.
did it someplace inside.
You got to throw him a bone once in a while.
the flare of the teacher workspace?
Actually, both spaces, because the dynamic of that, just that little, it's like a 3-degree shift on that one wall, will actually change your perception of how that space, the yellow space feels, as well as, there's a lot of glass on that corner of the blue space. You notice it.
Okay, all right, I've got that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's not curved, because Tony from Gilbane doesn't want us to build anything with a curve, so.
So,
Straight's okay.
yeah, I actually like the crooked. But, yeah, I agree with reducing the glass so they have some space
Yeah,
to
we
work
need
on.
some-
And same with the teacher offices, they're not going to want a full glass wall.
Yeah.
They need to have,
It's not full glass,
yeah,
but
they're
yeah.
going to have,
yeah.
I assume, cubicle type
They-
setups in there for the offices?
I wouldn't call them cubicle, I would call them workstations, not necessarily with walls around them, but yes,
Okay.
they will have desk spaces. I
And-
forget how many ended up in each one.
And Chip's on board with that?
Yep, understood. Yep, we've
So
worked with him through
When you
that.
do the flooring change, the only thing I'll say is maybe something, you know, like a carpet towel or something, just to keep the noise down. That's going to be a kind
Yeah,
of a
and
loud
so
area.
we need to have conversations with you about what floorings you do and don't want. We've had some schools that don't want any carpeting things out in corridors, just because of maintenance.
Yeah.
We've had other schools that don't want them anywhere in their whole building at all because of allergies. So we need to have
Yeah.
those conversations. We've made assumptions in what's been estimated, but those things could be
Yeah,
adjusted
I like
because they're
them when
not
you're putting
huge.
when you're putting the furniture down, like say along the wall, separate from what's the clear
Yep.
fire egress corridor. It keeps the furniture over there. It keeps the tapping feet down.
There's a sound
Yeah,
absorption to it.
and then, you know, when you put stuff on the walls, panels on the walls and stuff, because those become kind of a chatty area and the noise will just bounce all over the place.
Going forward, we haven't shown you anything really on the inside of the building yet. Finishes, what it looks like, that's like a really big next step. And similar to how we had conversations about the outside of the building, what the materiality of it is, we're gonna be having those conversations and then bringing things to you guys to make final decisions off of. So that will be in short order.
Yeah, well, I guess the takeaway from there is that we really like the outside now. We're not even talking about it anymore.
That's good. I'm so happy to have made it to that point where we can jump in, right, and focus our attention in. So thank you.
Kate, is this an additional, a separate, or did we keep this as a separate agenda item? The cost containment?
Yeah, it seems to, 3 seems to have merged already into 4, so We can just keep going through this, and then at the end, we'll do 4 as the actual make a motion for the recommendation. So we'll just kind of
Got
keep
it.
going here.
All right, so the first item that we have, again, these are areas that are continuing to be explored. We are not asking for a decision on this yet. We will come to you with much more information when we do ask you for a decision on this. This is the first item that Kathy was just referencing, the reduction of the exterior glazing. So we're targeting 10%, a 10% reduction in curtain wall and storefront. So in addition to this, there's another area in particular that I have my eye on, and it's a storefront perimeter around the gymnasium. There are much more efficient ways to get natural light into the gymnasium. So again, areas we're not impacting program. We finally got to an exterior that everybody likes. We don't want to change it. We're not looking to make any major modifications to the exterior. These are select refinements at this point.
I just want to put it out there. I would be interested in hearing the architect, like, they're going to go back and do it, right?
Yes.
And I know you're eyeballing above the auditorium. I would like to give them an opportunity to justify it if they do come back with it, to at least explain why, you know?
Yes.
Because I honestly don't know, but I can tell by the gestures and looks like some may not agree with that. That's fine. But I think we need to have that conversation, right? And understand the plus minus of it all. That's all.
Yes, absolutely. And again, we are not asking for a decision today. We do not have enough information to present to you to ask you to decide on this, nor do we need to decide on this right now. This is not part of our early release package. This is something we can take our time to thoughtfully design and make decisions on.
Hey,
The IT guy now, too.
when we do see that, if we could see the comparisons so that we see what 10% looks like, so that because again, at that number as well, if all of a sudden it's like, well, I can barely tell 10% to 20%, what would my 30% look like if that were to be doubled, and just have some sort of comparison, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item is a fritted glass. We currently have 100% of our glazing utilizing a fritted glass, which is like a stippled pattern. It is a bird-friendly frit, and it also provides a certain level of thermal properties. So the design team is studying. It is not currently part of our energy model, I will say that. So if we did eliminate it, it was not part of our energy model to begin with. The design team is doing additional due diligence on this to determine the impact on our energy model by factoring in the frit. At a minimum, we are looking to reduce it. It is currently on 100% of the glazing, which is not necessary. We are looking to identify the most impactful areas for this type of a treatment. The total value of all of the frit, 100% of it, is $600,000. So we, again, continuing to study its impact on our energy model, and then looking at strategic reductions.
600,000 more, or 600,000 is the glass cost?
No, 600 is just the frit,
It's the extra.
the
That's it.
extra.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of glass, and we have a lot of dumb birds, and I've been dealing with them everywhere I've been
Yeah.
when I have buildings like this. So I'd be careful of getting rid of too many.
Yeah,
Or,
so
or John will be putting up stickers of seagulls on the glass anyway. And they still don't work.
Yeah, so we, again, this is an area we are studying. We are not recommending a wholesale removal. Civil landscape, we tried to target some of the least impactful areas here, two of which being the change of curbing from a precast curb to a bituminous curb, studying the locations in which we would do that. Again, yes, still looking at places we would consider it. Also, the reduction of retaining and seat walls by 10%. The way that these are constructed are pretty expensive, so looking at alternative ways of building them. The seat walls in particular are in a lot of locations and looking at potential reductions of those locations as well as refinements in the way that they're built.
So just a clarification, I've already asked this question, so now I know the answer, but many people won't. What is precast curbs compared to bituminous curbs?
So it's concrete versus asphalt.
See, that's all you had to say.
Yeah, but it sounds fancy.
So precast is concrete, bituminous, it's a new word I learned,
Yes,
is
asphalt.
asphalt. Thank you.
They rip all of them apart, unless they're granite. Yeah.
You saying other than asphalt, or? Yeah. Or, you know, you can do Cape Cod.
The other option that actually was a suggestion from RIDE is eliminating curbing around the perimeter of the lots as well. So again, we're exploring, we're not suggesting, we're not
Yeah,
asking.
that'll be messy.
Yes.
But I'm more in favor of sheet flow than I am of curbing it with asphalt that's just going to look bad after about one winter.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion, and while the team's here, there is a seat wall around here.
Correct.
And if you're looking at seat walls of least impact,
Around
this
the
service area
generators
really,
one.
we've talked about this, should have a fence. It is an area we should not have anybody in.
Yes.
Typically, you'd put a fence around this. I don't see a lot of impact on a wall, because they had plants there, which are gonna overgrow the wall. Those plants that were spec there, I don't care if they're 3-foot arborvitaes, they're gonna get into the utility bins. I would suggest there's quite a bit of wall there, so all the 10% you could take was out of that. I don't think anybody would ever notice at all.
Yes.
So that would be my suggestion, because I'd hate to lose, personally, anything in the outdoor learning area or areas where people are actually going to sit and use the wall
Yes.
as intended, so, my 2 cents.
All right, and then the last slide is a very simple one. It's just a continuation of the conversation with our theater team, with the school, and with CHIP, and making sure that we have the correct theater package. During the reconciliation, there were some questions about if we have too much in there, making sure we have the right package in front of us. So this is under review as well as we continue those conversations in those meetings.
And it won't touch capacity.
Not capacity. This is rigging, lighting, that sort of thing.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, or 2 cents to share?
I'll just add that we are seeing the theater people on Thursday as well.
Yes. For the record, that the design team is meeting with the theater team on Thursday to review this.
What are the estimators used for, like, I saw we had, like...
It was like a 10% reduction.
Well, I'm just thinking in the gymnasiums, like 6 basketball nets, and I know there's a lot of expense in the manual versus automatic raising and lowering of the baskets. Do they estimate with mechanical, or do they estimate with...
I think that we need to always start, speak for me, we start with the motorized ones.
Right.
Because they're harder to crank and the whole thing.
Right.
Currently, they are motorized.
All right.
Another VE
Yeah,
could be
I don't think we're at the point
manual.
where that's going to make a huge difference, but I would just like to see that go before we go after some of the other, obviously program type stuff.
We can ask Gilbane to put a number to that.
Yeah. Because honestly, usually half of them they just stay in the same position all the time. I mean, Terry might disagree, but.
I noticed you mentioned that when he's not here.
Yeah. He's big, he scares me, but no, seriously, yeah, I mean, those things, there's a lot of things in athletics that may be outside, I mean, there's things that can be done.
Anyone else? All right, so I guess then at this time, we basically, our role at this point is to make a recommendation to either approve or reject to the town council and the school committee, what we just looked at just now. So as we stated earlier, we're looking at a joint meeting on Monday night between the town council and the school committee. So one presentation town council will, whatever order, school committee will approve, town council will approve, hopefully. I'm sure there will be a robust discussion and lots of questions asked and answered. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to make
I will make a motion to recommend to the town council and the school committee approval of the design document set, design development set.
I will second that motion.
Right, so we have a recommendation by Dave and a second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So that passes. Thank you, team. That brings us to item 5, a very quick, simple discussion action, next meeting dates, time, and potential agenda items. As we've spoken about multiple times, we have our public forum Thursday. It will be here from 6 to 8. It is not a school building committee meeting. I will kick it off with a little bit of an introduction, but our project team will be running it. And that will take place Thursday. And then from there, our next business meeting is scheduled for Juneteenth, which is a problem. So we're going to have to pick a different day. Do we have anything pressing where we would need a meeting on the 12th? Or do we go out and we pick another day, the week of the 16th? Or do we just go for the next week of the 26th?
I think if we go a week, we should be okay.
So we'll be fine going to June 26th would be a Thursday. I don't know if is this room, you're on vacation? We can pick a different day of the week of the 19th, so we could do an 18 or a 20. Does anybody have any preference on that? Okay. And it's a Friday. That's a good idea, Dave. Do we have the 18th free in this room by chance? You're on vacation?
Zoning is happening that night here, but tough weeks.
Nope. We can bump. So how about we do this? Why don't we say we're gonna shoot for the 26th, sans Luke. As long as we have it, if we have the room open.
Too many calendars.
I think we would,
So which day?
the 26th.
Looks like it's open.
So we'll plan for June 26th, and if some sort of special meeting needs to be put on the books, we'll rally the troops like we did tonight. Is that good? All right, so the next business meeting, June 26th, 6 to 7 here. Yeah. All right. All right, and as usual, if anybody has any items they want to make sure is added to the agenda, please let me know. And with that said, I will accept, we have no public, but we are open for public comment. Nobody's here, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the meeting closes 7 p.m. on the button.